Greetings to our viewers and listeners around the world. This is Christopher Halali, and welcome to Endgame Episode 3. Today, we're joined by two Lebanese journalists who are going to speak to us from on the ground in Lebanon about what's going on there, what's happening, and ultimately the ongoing situation vis-a-vis Israel's war of aggression on Lebanon. But first, let's take a little bit of a glance at what's happened over the past week. So we spoke to you last Thursday. We had two wonderful guests on the show. And after that, we had the talks in Islamabad between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States, mediated by Pakistan. Those talks ended in no agreement, and ultimately, what ended up happening was a breakdown in the overall perspectives of both sides, with Iran accusing the United States of being very much about its position and its position alone, not being flexible, not being diplomatic, and ultimately trying to strong-arm Iran, which had, of course, the military advantage in its asymmetric war and defense against U.S. and American aggression. Likewise, the Americans responded by imposing a blockade. For those who are unaware, a blockade is an act of war under international law. I spoke about this recently on another show that you can check out on the YouTube channel, but we spoke at length about how a blockade it constitutes an act of war and is used when all other diplomatic means fail. It's not the same as an embargo. An embargo is not an act of war, but a blockade is. So right now, the United States has imposed a blockade. We saw Trump in the past 48 hours tweet out, or I should say retweet, a message from U.S. Central Command, which is a audio message to all ships in the area that anyone leaving or trying to go to Iranian ports will be subject to seizure and search and boarding by the United States Navy, and those who try to run the blockade will be met with force. So this is a very serious situation that's happening right now in the Gulf of Oman, heading into the Strait of Hormuz, and there are questions now lingering as to whether there will be a second round of talks in Islamabad. It's still not certain that Iran and the U.S. have agreed to this. Of course, they've agreed in principle to have the ceasefire last until approximately April 21st, but whether a second round of talks will happen remains ultimately in the hands of the diplomats and political leaders who are trying to resolve what has been a 40-day war of aggression imposed on Iran by the United States and Israel. So there's a lot going on. The war, of course, has overshadowed what's going on in Lebanon. What's going on in Lebanon is extremely serious and very much not spoken enough about. We have the largest ethnic cleansing since the Nakba in 1948 in the region, with over 1 million Lebanese civilians displaced. So this is very important. I'd like to welcome our first guest today, Hadi Hoteit, who is a Lebanese journalist and war correspondent from the south of Lebanon, works with Press TV and Free Palestine TV. I'd like to welcome him to the show, and we are very, very happy to hear from a Lebanese journalist on the ground. Welcome, Hadi. Hope you are doing well. Hope you are safe.
Hello, Chris, and it has been a long time since we met in Beirut last year in the funeral of Sayyid Nasrallah.
That's right. I hope to join you again very soon. I'll be headed to another destination in the region, but inshallah, we'll be together in Lebanon soon. I think that it's so important what's happening in Lebanon now. We're trying to highlight this. Of course, we're in communication with many of you and are trying to share the information. Tell us what's going on the ground right now, what you're seeing from the field.
I just came back from Tyre region. I was actually in south of Litani with my friend and colleague Leif Mahrouf, the director and founder of Free Palestine TV. I think you're familiar with his work. We were in south of Litani when the Israelis targeted the last bridge that connects South Litani area to north of Litani, and destroyed almost complete destruction of the bridge. Right now, it's very hard to be able to fix it soon. But of course, our people always find alternatives, and they always they have really creative ways of overcoming these Israeli tactics that they try to isolate locations from each other here. And of course, when they are destroying this bridge. They are blocking the only bridge that was left to connect North Lithuania to South of Lithuania, which means that right now, with the talks about ceasefire, by the way, there is no ceasefire on the ground until now. There is escalation, but we are promised that tonight by the Iranian efforts with the Pakistanis and the negotiations with the Americans. We hope that ceasefire might start tonight at 12, but we are still skeptical as our experience with the Israelis who never keep any agreement. Right now, the situation on the ground is more escalation since morning, more than 200. We left South Lebanon like 3 hours ago with about 200 airstrikes and shelling targeting the entire areas from Nabatieh to Wadi al-Hujair to Bint Jbail area to the western sector in Tyre where I was mainly today. I also visited parts of Saida and parts of Nabatieh where I witnessed the fires and the aftermath of several airstrikes. Usually when I go to South Lebanon, my tour starts from Saida towards Nabati to Tyre region, and then return to Beirut. Either the opposite. Today it was very hard to actually to reach Nabati, my own village where suffered, which is a small village 40 kilometers away from the borders. It suffered from 6 consecutive uh, airstrikes, drone strikes actually, that was targeting anybody that was moving. We have today more than 4 to 5 casualties in only in my village because some of them were just like um, normal people. We're speaking about civilians, of course. Some of them are even less than 20 years old. They were using their motorcycles to go to bring some water or some food, and they were struck with drone strikes, precise strikes. One of the motorcycles was actually targeted twice. It only shows my interpretation because when I was in South Lebanon, I wasn't aware that there is serious talk about ceasefire. So I was thinking that the Israelis are today going in a crazy hunt for anything that is moving in South Lebanon. And usually this pattern of attacks and this pattern of aggression is related, according to our experience with Israeli aggressions and with Israeli wars since 2006, six at least. And also, I still have some memories from the 96 aggression, and definitely I have lots of memories from the liberation in 2000. We're speaking here about this pattern of usually when you have a ceasefire, when the Israelis are going to stop the war, they start exerting the maximum pressure on our people to make them uh, even unable to think that they were victorious, unable to think that this war led to victory. And we saw this actually during the 45 days, I guess more than 45 days here in Lebanon of the war. If it stopped tonight, I'm very skeptical about the ceasefire. If it stopped tonight, we have 45 days where the Israelis only destroyed border villages, Rig, Naqoura, and Deir Sarian, and Taibe, and what was left from Adaisi, and Ainata, and Bint Jbel, and Hayat al-Sha'ab with explosives and destroyed the buildings. Their only victory in this war has been to prevent people from having houses to return to after a ceasefire happened. This was the only achievement. If someone wants to say congratulations to Netanyahu, this is what he can say to him. You destroyed the houses of the people in South Lebanon, and they think that by this they will make us unable to return. But actually, uh, look, during the 15 months of unstoppable, of non-stoppable attacks, continuous attacks against us, that this is why right now I'm not saying this is a war. The 45 days of a new phase of escalation against our people. But we must not, I believe we must never use the word of 45 days war the war never stopped since last year here in South Lebanon, since 2 years actually. And after what was the fake ceasefire that was uh, brokered at first by the US, and later they said we have no relation with it. And Tom Barrack later said, I can't guarantee anything. And everybody thought that Hezbollah was finished because Hezbollah was in a strategic deception mode that was trying to make everybody think that the resistance has finished. But on the ground in this war, also there are other achievements for Netanyahu that we can we can say congratulations for them, which is the resistance going back to south of Litani, the resistance using Scud missiles against Tel Aviv, the resistance using precise Fateh 110 and Nasser 1 and Nasser 2 accurate ballistic missiles and short range ballistic missiles against Israel and against locations and bases, military bases in Tel Aviv and in Haifa and in other locations. The resistance introducing the FPV drones now in the attacks, and they were major reason why the Israelis had to stop the war without any achievement on the ground. If they stop it tonight, they stop it without any achievement on the ground related to military achievement. They haven't done anything that is worth to be mentioned related to military because they were helpless in front of the FPV drones that Hezbollah used in this war for the first time. Even they, what guarantees that they were surprised by these tactics from Hezbollah, and they never thought that Hezbollah, during all of what's happening, Hezbollah was able to manufacture thousands of these drones and send them to the front line, where while everybody was thinking that south of Litani right now is forbidden zone for Hezbollah and forbidden zone for the resistance. So a major achievement for Netanyahu in this war was sending and bringing Hezbollah back to south of Litani, bringing them back to Khiyam and to Bint Jbeil and to Ainata and to Bayada and to all of these areas where everybody thought that the resistance has left. Right now, this morning, clashes were happening inside Khiyam, and the clashes were happening inside, and mass casualties events for the Israelis happened inside Bint Jbeil, right 2 kilometers away from the borders in the central sector, which is the most, it's the central sector is the peninsula inside the occupied Palestine
Mm-hmm.
geography. This is why, for example, during the 45 days war, I was not able to reach Bint Jbeil as a journalist. It's very hard. I reached Khiyam, I reached Tyre, I went to Nabati, but to Bint Jbeil, it's very far from anywhere else. You know, if you want to go there, it's very hard to reach it. Still, the resistance was there, and the resistance was able to continue repelling the invasion and causing uh, damage to the Israelis and telling them no land without cost here in South Lebanon. If you wanna go into an invasion, if you want an invasion here, you have to pay the cost with your blood and your lives. And this was the main reason why the Battle of Vintage Bell, that Netanyahu wanted it as a power card in the hand of Trump in the negotiations with in Pakistan and with Iran. It was transformed to a power card in the hands of the Iranians. They were saying to Netanyahu, do you want to continue the war? After 45 days, you're still 2 kilometers. You're still having fights in the first and second towns on directly on the borders. What are you planning to do with your ground invasion? This is why they had to stop this war. Also, Hezbollah in this war, surprisingly, even I was very surprised that they were able to launch an anti-ship missile, ground to sea missile that hit a warship in the Middle East, in the Mediterranean Sea, in front of the Lebanese shores. And I'm 100% sure that later, just few weeks later, maybe at most, all the story will be published in the media about that ship that first they denied, then They said it was a British ship. Then the British denied. Then the British declared that one ship had suffered from, I don't know what, maybe another laundry fire or plumbing system failure, and it had to be returned to the UK. So also Hezbollah in this war, again, they used for more than 50 times anti-air missiles, manpads, mainly manpads, which also shows that the entire capabilities of the resistance returned to be active and returned to be effective in the war. And this combined operations, the focusing on goals instead of like just random guerrilla warfare, was able to prove that the resistance still has its command and still able to deliver on its word to the people that they will be fighting and coordinating and conducting this response to this aggression with obvious and with a clear strategy, not only just like random responses. This is, I believe, this is what the Israelis, this is what the Israelis were thinking. They were thinking, and we heard, or we read, we read Hebrew media. They were saying that we might reach Litani River in hours, and later they said like it's a matter of 5 days. And later they were ambushed on the Litani River, and they said we will never go back to Taibi again. They withdraw from the entire eastern sector. From the entire eastern sector, there is no Israeli soldier right now on the Litani River. There is no Israeli soldier right now in Wadi al-Hujab. Who is present in these areas are the resistance fighters. Who is present in Taibi and in the eastern sector are the resistance fighters. And this is what can mark the real loss, strategic.
We have some
I
technical
think we
difficulties, as
lost
all
the
of you
connection.
know. It's difficult sometimes with the wars that are going on and the technical connections. Of course, we
Yeah,
have similar issues sometimes with Professor Said Mohammed Marandi. So we're back now. We're back. We have you
yeah.
back, thankfully. Good, good,
Hopefully, yeah.
good that you're back. Let me ask you. I want to ask you before before we run out of the interview. I want to ask you about what your feelings are and what the feelings are on the ground of these talks that have happened that are very historic and I think shameful for many in Lebanon that have happened in the United States with the Lebanese ambassador and the Israeli ambassador. These are talks at this kind of level we haven't seen since even before, like the early 80s and even before that. And of course, I think that it's very much from what I've seen in the media, it's been condemned by so many people across the board. What are you seeing on the ground? What are people saying about not only these talks, but the possibility that some people want normalization?
The elite right now that is governing Lebanon was appointed directly by the United States after the 66 days war and the martyrdom of Sayyid Nasrallah. After the martyrdom of Sayyid Nasrallah, the enemies of the resistance declared the death of the resistance, the end of the political power of all of the bloc of the resistance in Lebanon. And they said to everybody, we are now right now going to govern Lebanon alone. We don't care about any equations that used to be before the 66 days war. Right now, it's a new order, right? This is what Netanyahu named it, the new order. And here, people, some political elite in Lebanon, also they said yes, it's a new order, and they declared themselves victorious. And this is when you start. If you want to start by mentioning what happened, if you remember, they stopped the flights from Iran, direct flights from Iran, directly after the war. So we used to fly to Iran in 2 hours. Now we have to go to Dubai or to Turkey in a 16 hours flight. And of course, with extensive security checks and and everything else. You know how's the situation here. You came to Lebanon, and also after stopping the flights from Iran, the border with Syria also was had more security checks, and also the Israelis were attacking the borders with Syria, and later they said like we are imposing a force, a blockade by force on Hezbollah from Iran, from Syria, from everywhere. Later, the head of the treasury in Lebanon, or the central bank, imposed a financial blockade on not Hezbollah but the entire Shia population. Let's be very clear. He said to some people around him that later it was revealed to the press here that we want to make the people of South Lebanon unable to rebuild their houses. They must pay. They must pay for their politics. They must pay the price. Karim Said. Karim Said was appointed. He's a Zionist, and he was appointed also by the U.S. as the head of the treasury here in Lebanon. Right now, if you want to send money for me, it's like a 50-50 possibility. I'm not asking you to send me money. If you want to send money to me, it's a 50-50 possibility that I will be blocked. And they told me like, Christopher is sending money to a Shia in Lebanon. They must revise it. Why you are sending this? What you are doing? But if you are sending it to anyone else, it's gonna be like as smooth as always. They are imposing this blockade on the people here, financial blockade. Later, of course, you saw how they started dealing with the Iranians in Lebanon, the Iranian diplomats, the Iranian ambassador, the relationship with Iran, how, if you remember, our stupid, extremely highly stupid foreign minister or minister of foreign, he is a foreign minister. He's the minister of foreign affairs, but he's the minister of foreigners in our land. He's, even the simplest protocols related to how we should deal with other ambassadors, he wasn't respecting it when he was dealing with the Iranian ambassador or with the martyr Larijani, for example, when he came to Lebanon. It was a ridiculous situation where they were thinking they are victorious and they will continue to humiliate the bloc of the resistance in Lebanon. This is what they wanted to do. Of course, it wasn't only attacking Shia community. They called the Christians who support the resistance Zimmiyuns, Zimmis. It's a word that you can Google it if someone wants to understand the genealogy of this word. It's a word related to how those Christians are slaves or have inferiority complex regarding the Muslims. This is what they are calling the Christians who are supporting the resistance. They were even like and I'm not speaking here about like social media accounts. I'm speaking about, for example, channels like MTV, the main propaganda channel for the Zionists in Lebanon against the resistance. You work in the media field. You know what does it take to approve a report and to air it on the channel, like MTV channel. It must go through all the process of all the approvals from the upper, the senior director and the senior producer and everybody. In an official report on the MTV, they called the Christians who are supporting the resistance that Zimmis, and they even used other the words I don't want to use, and they named 4 or 5 of them. To this extent, they wanted to humiliate everybody who was supporting the resistance. To this extent, they brought Nawaf Salam to the government. Nawaf Salam, who has zero representation among the Sunnis in Lebanon, they brought him to represent the Sunnis. Zero representation. Nawaf Salam is hated by the Sunnis in Lebanon, maybe more than Shia. Now, after the war, I think the Shia will hate him more. But he has zero representation, and it was a big problem. for the Sunnis here in Lebanon. We have they have their representatives. They have people here on the ground. They have Saad al-Hariri. They have Najib Miqati. They have people. They are not necessarily those guys are not with the resistance. They are pro Saudi Arabia, but they understand how the situation on the ground here. They understand that some things, if you do it, you will get a civil war. That these things cost something. But when someone has zero representation, all his family is outside Lebanon. He was brought from I think the ICJ, who was the head of it, and he was put assigned here as prime minister, and he started sending, it's like the Ottoman Faraman, they started, I want this, and he sent it to the army, and the army responds like, we can't do it. For example, you want us to attack or to try to get inside the houses in South Lebanon during the 15 months of ceasefire. We cannot go inside houses. If we go as a Lebanese army inside the house, we will be doing something that will cost us response from the people. The people will not accept it. We cannot go and search for weapons inside the houses of the people in South Lebanon. It can never happen. And he was asking like, why it can never happen? You must do it, because he does not understand how the situation on the ground. He doesn't want to understand. He has nothing to lose. He's a servant for his masters in Washington or in Tel Aviv. I don't know which one. And even the people in Saudi Arabia were not happy with uh, with him being a prime minister, because simply because he was dismissing or neglecting the role of Saudi Arabia in being the sponsor for the Sunni political community here in Lebanon. I'm not here speaking about sectarian. When I say Sunni, I mean it as a political entity. This is how Lebanon is anyway. If someone has a question, he can later explain it or search for it. But the Saudi Arabia was the sponsor after the PLO left Lebanon, was actually left Lebanon under the Israeli attack and invasion in 1982. They didn't want Arafat to have the power of being also the representative for the Sunnis in Lebanon. So they said it's very dangerous. The Israelis entered, they kicked Arafat out to Tunisia, and they said now we have the Saudis who will be the sponsors for the Sunnis in Lebanon after 1982. This has been the thing since then. And with Rafiq al-Hariri and the situation, I think you're familiar with this. Now they went even further. They wanted to neglect the role of the Saudis because they were acting according to the real politics on the ground. They did not consider even Rafiq al-Hariri when he was the prime minister. He knew that if he wanted to be a successful prime minister, he must not act as an alien to the Lebanese people. He must abide by the situation here and act according to what's happening and to the history of each community here and what are their main uh, problems and the main issues that they worry about. Like, for example, the people of South Lebanon who always worry about Israel and were only liberated in the year 2000. You cannot neglect the fact that they have an Israeli threat to be invaded at any moment after year 2000. This is what Nawaf Salam right now is doing. He came as the prime minister, and in 1 year he wanted to transform Lebanon from the the I don't want to use metaphoric expressions, but it was Lebanon was a castle for the resistance. He wants now to transform it to a den for the Zionists in
Mm-hmm.
1 year. He thinks he's a Superman or something, but he failed. He failed miserably, and the reason why he failed also we can who declared his failure was Netanyahu. Netanyahu in what happened now also decided that Nawaf Salam failed miserably in what he was doing, according to the results of what happened now.
I, I
Uh,
think I
they
think it's
hurried. Now I reached to the part to your question, but I had to say this. He rushed to Washington he sent that new ambassador in Washington to meet the Israeli ambassador, only to have this picture and to present it for his masters. Look, I achieved something. I achieved something. You know, it could never happen without me. But on the ground here, he lost the last possible way back to be a prime minister of Lebanon. Right now, if anyone, look, there is a very easy test. You can just challenge him to go on the streets 20 meters outside the Grand Sarai in central Beirut. Let him go 20 meters without bodyguards in the outside the Grand Sarai in Beirut. This is the easiest test to know the popularity of somebody in the authority here. You remember how the Iranians were in the streets during wartime and after the riots. You saw Larijani, you saw Bezeshkian, you saw Arakji, you saw all of them on the streets among their people after the war. We can use this as a reference for people for responsibles for government personnel who have representation, who are not afraid from their people, who can go among their people and they can still be feel safe among their people. Of course, I challenge Nawaf Salam right now. When I was coming here to do this interview with you, I'm in a library in Al Hamra Street. Right on the corner under this library, there was a SWAT team for the personal guards of the Sarai. Right now, they feel very threatened that they had to put the SWAT guys with their full gear, to terrorize the people. People, I saw like women were asking on the streets, women displaced from South Lebanon and from Dahi who are right now taking shelter in Hamra. They were asking themselves, and I heard them like, who are they? What are they doing? Is there anything happening here? Should we change the road? Should we go somewhere else? They are just terrorizing the people here. They think that by this they are achieving something. But the fact here, the result of this war is that this Zionist elite that thought they could govern Lebanon and lead Lebanon to become a Zionist banana republic, they failed miserably, and they will receive the results of their deeds and their acts soon, hopefully, by the people.
I think you're absolutely right, Hadi. And I think that one thing that's clear is that the resistance has not died. It's continuing. It's even stronger than many people had expected. Even I was so surprised, not only with what we've seen militarily, but also with these FPVs hitting Merkava tanks, you name it. It's been so amazing to see in terms of the sheer power that the resistance still has. I think most Lebanese are very much against normalization, very much against appeasing or even
Definitely.
supporting
You can
any
be
of this.
sure about this.
Absolutely. And I look forward. I spent a lot of great days and weeks in Hamra. I look forward to seeing you again there soon, inshallah. We'll be together hopefully in the coming weeks and months. And I want you to take care of yourself, be safe.
So.
And thank you so much again for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we are joined by our second guest who's calling us on the road. He's on the line now, Ali Rida Sbeity, who is also a journalist and a war correspondent. And he is very, very well known now, especially, even though he was a very profound journalist before, working for RT as the cameraman. And you'll all know what happened to RT journalist Steve Sweeney. And that video, RT journalist Steve Sweeney was recently on Tucker Carlson and many other shows. A good friend of mine, brother to me and Ali as well. So I'd like to welcome Ali to the program. How are you doing, brother? How's everything going?
All's good, all's good. We're just heading back from South Lebanon now. We were in Sur district around the Qasmiya bridge that was targeted today. And the Israeli army threatened also to target the bridge again. So the Lebanese army told us to leave the area to not be in the same situation like before and the old strike that happened in the Qasmiya bridge because we were targeted and they targeted us deliberately on the bridge. So we had to leave now. And especially after the announcement of the ceasefire that it's gonna start at 12 a.m. So now the Israeli air forces are like going like crazy in South Lebanon. We're hearing reports about airstrikes almost in every village in Lebanon, southern of the Litani River.
Is it similar to the bombing that we saw just, I think it was within the past week, where we saw 200 or 160 strikes in 10 minutes, and we had so many deaths in Beirut itself? This level of attack, which is basically trying to go all the way to the deadline to destroy as much as possible so that they can appease Trump and also appease the war faction of the Zionist regime. What are you seeing there?
We're seeing in South, like this is, it's like the Israeli army do this every time. Whenever they announce a ceasefire and they started calling that the war is gonna end, they use those last hours to put more pressure on the people. It's part of their psychological warfare. When we've seen that on that, as we call here in Lebanon, the Black Wednesday, when we've seen that the 160 strikes in 10 minutes all over Lebanon, we thought that this is okay. This is the last strikes that Israel is doing, especially targeting civilians before the ceasefires kicks in. So now we're seeing the same, especially in South. For now, luckily, there's no strikes in Beirut. We had moments ago, around 10 or 15 minutes, a strike in around Saida and Ghazi, which led to the killing of family of 7 people killed and more than 30 wounded in that strike. So now they are trying to bomb and to as much as they can before the 12 a.m. Moment. So it's the same thing, but it's only in South Lebanon, in the villages of South Lebanon, and they targeted the Qasmi bridge today to make it harder to people to come back because the southern Lebanese people, whenever they hear ceasefire is in and they hear the war is ending, all of them rush back to their houses and to their villages because they are the owners of the land and they are the owner of these houses and they are the rightful owners of these lands in southern Lebanon. So whenever they have the chance, they right away they go back. We've seen it in the 66 days. The ceasefire was announced at 4 a.m. At 4 a.m., people were already in their houses. So we're gonna see the same thing now. Now we are parking beside of the road, and I am seeing actually traffic is still going. People are start to go and to move around to South Lebanon. Now we are between Beirut and Saida, and I think you can hear it. You can see more people and more cars driving towards south. They targeted the bridge today. I think they were knowing that the ceasefire was going to be today, and the people is going to rush to their villages. And that was the last bridge that's connect Saida and Sur. So now everyone who want to go to Sur, they either have to go by foot to park before the Qasmi Bridge and walk into the city, or to go between the trees in the fields around the main street. I think the officials in Sur and the municipality is going to try to at least rebuild the bridge or get some solutions to make it easier for people to come back. We're going to see in the coming hours, and because till now the Lebanese officials and Amir Berri, the parliament spokesman, just announced that for people to not rush to their villages because till now we don't know this ceasefire. What's hiding behind this ceasefire? What are the agreements? What are the rules? What they have agreed to? And Hezbollah's official announcement about it, or its official stand for this ceasefire. The media relation a few minutes ago sent a message to the journalists that any ceasefire should include every Lebanese territory and should not allow the Israeli army to attack whenever they want. So I think it's a very volatile and ceasefire. It's a very fragile ceasefire. So we're gonna see in the coming hours or the coming days how much this ceasefire is gonna stand.
We heard from Hadi that clearly there was skepticism on his side of whether this ceasefire would even happen, and if it happens, if it will hold. And I think that that's kind of the feeling generally, and it is connected to what happens in Islamabad next. We'll see. The U.S. and Iran are slated for a second round of negotiations. There's been no confirmation officially from the Iranian side that those negotiations will take place, and the ceasefire will end between the United States and Iran approximately April 21st. So it remains to be seen what ends up happening and how Lebanon will be impacted by this. But in your perspective, what's happening on the ground in Lebanon vis-a-vis these talks that have happened in Washington that have been quite historic and quite infamous already? This is the Lebanese ambassador speaking to the Israeli ambassador, first time since the early 80s, if that, and the first high-level and high-profile dialogue between the Israelis and the Lebanese in decades. So what's going on? How are Lebanese seeing this? And is normalization a possibility, as they're saying in Western media, or are Lebanese going to reject it?
We say here for every 17th of May there is a 6th of February. So the 17th of May was the agreement between the Lebanese government and the Israeli government back in the 80s, and the 6th of February it was the fighting that killed that agreement. People on the ground are not even taking seriously this negotiation or the what happened in Washington for many reasons. First, because the Lebanese government, they don't have any powerful card to use in Washington, and they actually went there from a weak spot, and they announced it. They publicly said that we are going there to play the victim, and maybe we can get something. This is not how you negotiate with the Americans, not with these, neither with the Zionist regime. You negotiate with this regime, the Zionist regime, in Khiyam and in Jbeil. This is the only way to negotiate with those creatures, because they always target civilians, to target infrastructure, and they have nothing to abide with, no rules, nothing at all. And for us, when you go to them from a weak point, they will use that to put more aggression into Lebanon. We've seen what happened with Gaza. They don't abide with any ceasefire, even when they themselves announce it. So what happened in Washington doesn't have any meaning for the people in Lebanon. They don't see it as a real negotiation. They just criticize it because these are peace talks with the regime that is killing the people, because the announcement of that agreement or the negotiation between Lebanon and the Israeli regime happened just one day after the Black Wednesday, which when we had more than 300 killed and more than 1,200 wounded by those Israeli strikes in Lebanon. So to put your hand in in those bloody hands of the Israeli, that's itself, it criticized the Lebanese government for doing so. They didn't respect the Lebanese people. They didn't respect their own sovereignty. They didn't respect the blood of the martyrs and the wounded who were along all this war, and especially in Black Wednesday. So they can do whatever you want, and the people they have all their prayers and all their wishing is only by the Islamic resistance in Lebanon and what they're doing in Khiyam and in Jbeil, because for now it's more than 40 days since the war started, and they have not even they weren't able to occupy Khiyam itself. Today we heard about clashes in Khiyam and in Jbeil, where they were trying to make it as if a great victory when they destroyed the playground, the soccer playground, where Sayyid Nasrallah did his historical speech and said that Israel is like the spider house. It's fragile as a spider house. When they did that, they assured us that what Sayyid Nasrallah said is actually true, and they made it more historical, and they gave it its space more in history, because when the army that claims that it's the greatest army in West Asia and in the region is still going after that speech from more than 20 years ago and still trying to destroy that speech, which means that that speech really hit the target well. And that speech took its place in history, and they now uh, they they uh, they raised it again to the surface. They stupidly raised it again to the surface, especially for the new generation who maybe forgot about the speech or maybe haven't heard enough about the speech. Now they know more. They will ask more. What's the speech? What happened there? And they will know the reality and they will know the truth about the speech in Bint Jbeil.
Absolutely. And one of the things, speaking about history, you have made history recently. You and our brother Steve Sweeney, who is a RT journalist in Lebanon, you were subject to a strike, and we have that clip. I hope we can play that for everybody to see. Let's pull that up here so that people who haven't seen it. So we have Steve speaking on the bridge, and look at this. So the Israelis bomb the location where you and Steve are giving a report next to a Lebanese army base, basically. Yeah. Tell us about what happened. Tell us the background. Tell our viewers who haven't seen it what's going on.
Back then, they issued a threat order to the bridges that's linking the northern of the Litani and the southern of the Litani. One day before we went there, they struck it around 9 p.m. In the night. So, of course, to cover that and to cover the impact of that targeting of the bridge, because they were trying to close all the roads into the southern of the Litani. So, of course, we went there to cover it, to see what's going on, to see how the impact on the ground is. So we went there. The Lebanese army were already closing the road to the bridge because it wasn't useful, and no one can use it, maybe just to cross it by foot. So went there with my friend Steve, and he was doing his report, his thing on the camera, and I was, because we are a small team and we keep it like this too, because it's easier for us to maneuver during these hard situations. So he was standing there doing his thing on the camera, and I had another camera taking some B-rolls, some footage for the bridge, and I was standing exactly in the impact spot to take more footage for the bridge itself and for the river, for the Litani River. And it was a bit windy there. So he called me to hold the tripod and to make the camera more steady. And I came there to hold it. Since we are up there, we've heard the fighter jets roaring over our heads, but the strikes were happening in Sur and the surrounding area. So we thought this bridge, it's already targeted, and we had the green light from the Lebanese army to go there, unlike what happened today. So we went there, we were filming, and we had also Al Mayadeen team there. They left, and we started our work maybe less than a minute, and then the strike happened just a few meters behind us. And it was only by luck that we survived that day, because the rocket itself was detonated in the same old hole that in the bridge. So most of the impact and the pressure from the missile was taken below the bridge, and if it was targeted in the intact part of it, we would have been torn into pieces that day. So it was only by luck that we are there today, and it was a deliberate target because we had our vest jackets clearly mentioning press. We have our phone, and when the drones is overhead, they know every phone belongs to each person, because we know the advanced technology that the Israeli army have. And we had also our car that they know very well, because we spent more than 1 year, 1 or 2 years in South Lebanon, covering the events in South Lebanon, and they know our car, and it's registered with the Lebanese army and with the uniform that this car belongs to this team, and also we have press on it. And they deliberately targeted while we were there. Like, they had the chance to do it before we arrive, or after we leave, or even the last night when they targeted it first time and it wasn't completely destroyed. they could have done it again. But even the bridge itself, when they targeted the bridge last night, it was almost destroyed. It was, you can only pass it by foot, walking, no car, nothing could have been able to cross the bridge. So they had no military action, no military goal into targeting it again. But we were very lucky to survive another days to report more on these Israeli crimes. And what happened gave us more commitment to stay more on the ground, to stay more on the field. After the targeting, just by 2 days or 3 days, we were in Khiyam reporting there the clashes there. So this targeting gave us more commitment to stay there, to raise our voices more, and to give more voices to the people here, and to report more their crimes and to share the truth.
About the fact that so many people had declared the resistance dead, and that there would be no more resistance. And what we have seen over the past weeks has been the exact opposite. Not only is it not dead, it's more powerful than people had ever expected. FPV drones that we've seen in the Donbass in the special military operation that are used against Merkava tanks. We've seen advanced rockets. We've seen ground-to-air missiles. We've seen ground-to-ship missiles. So tell us about what the resistance has looked like on the ground and how that has changed the perceptions in Lebanon for those who were much more skeptical about the resistance capabilities.
The past 1 year and 5 or 6 months, they were very hard on people, because we've seen almost daily breach of the ceasefire by the Israeli army, and we've seen drone strikes attacking cars, families, motorbikes. So it's been hard for people to take it, because when you see daily attack and there's no fight back or no firing back, people started to think, what happened to Hezbollah? What's going on? Are we really destroyed? Are we losing? Because Hezbollah played it so smart that even the supporters started to think twice that what happened with Hezbollah during this time. But when this escalation started again, in the 2nd of March, we've seen the 6 rockets that they were targeted from south, and then we've seen nothing for 2 days. So people thought, is it really Hezbollah doing this, or someone trying to get the country into another war with Israel? Because we saw these 6 rockets and then nothing for 2 days. So what Hezbollah was doing is giving more space for people to move out from the villages and from the southern suburbs, from Dahi, to move out, to go into safety, to go into safer places, and then to carry on the military attacks and the operations. Then what we've seen there is people are calling here miracles, because you're speaking about a military. They were targeted for 1 year, 1.5 years, 1 year and 6 months, and no firing back. But what we've seen during those days from the 2nd of March till now, these are miracles. Till now, they weren't able to occupy Khiyam. Of course, they get in. Of course, they go detonate houses, and this is normal, especially for an army at the size of the Israeli army. But when you're speaking about this army against those Hezbollah fighters, this is no military accomplishment or anything they accomplished that they can brag about. They have done nothing. Even today, they shared a very funny video, or a photo actually, showing hunting guns. An Israeli soldier standing in a like he did a very accomplished a very great goal. But what we've seen in the picture are hunting guns. So I shared it on Twitter saying that mission accomplished. They got the duck destroying weapons, of mass duck destroying weapons. So it's very funny that they are doing nothing. This destroying of the houses, it's normal for this army to do this. But if they really accomplished anything is to occupy Khiyam or to occupy Bint Jbeil. They went to Bint Jbeil, but they faced fierce resistance, and they faced ambush everywhere in Khiyam. They were targeted in where they tried to get from Marun al-Ras. They were targeted by ambush and by Hezbollah. Even in Bayada, in every village they try to get in, they are seeing a fierce resistance, and they can't do bases or stay there for long or occupy the whole village. We've seen for the past week hearing about Bint Jbeil, but still to this day the fighting is happening inside the city of Bint Jbeil and inside the city of Khiyam. So an army of the size of Israel and by the technology they have, after 40 days or 45 days, they haven't occupied a village or a city like Khiyam or Bint Jbeil. So I don't know what to say. This is really for Hezbollah. It's a great job. For Hezbollah, it's an accomplishment to not allow this army to occupy these villages. But for the Israeli army, it's a humiliation. They're being humiliated in South Lebanon.
No doubt about it. And I think that it has been something really remarkable that we've seen. Also, military analysts are saying this is unbelievable to have a force targeted not only now, over the course of the past years, the beeper attacks, which violated international law, and then the intense bombing over different campaigns, and still to come back and to basically challenge a nuclear armed state and to hold it at the line. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. We only have just 2 minutes left with you. Let me ask you very quickly, what do you expect in the coming days and weeks? What are people expecting from Islamabad? Maybe a second round of talks, or maybe they're much more skeptical. And if the fighting continues, what do you expect in Lebanon in terms of the resistance and also all of those people who are internally displaced?
For South Lebanon, for Lebanon, this ceasefire is very fragile, and people are not taking it very seriously, and they are like thinking twice before taking it very serious, because Hezbollah said that if a ceasefire is happening in Lebanon, it should include every part of Lebanon, because the Israeli regime is announcing that there is a ceasefire between Lebanon and the Lebanese government, but it doesn't include Hezbollah, or it doesn't include part of the south of the Litani, which actually means that it's not a real ceasefire, and they have like the freedom to move or to attack whenever they see something by Hezbollah. And Hezbollah, by the Secretary General Sheikh Naim Qassem, said that we will not accept any ceasefire if it doesn't include all of Lebanese territories and the Israeli army leaving South Lebanon. So we have to wait for the coming days to see how Hezbollah will react for this ceasefire. And I think they're going to wait for Islamabad. Maybe they'll get more information from the Iranian and the American agreements to make a real ceasefire happen in Lebanon, because this one is not very accurate. It's not very good for Lebanon, because people are saying here, if Israel is making agreement with the Lebanese government, there is no fighting between Israel and the government. The fighting is with Hezbollah. And if the government said that it's going for a ceasefire, why is it excluding Hezbollah and the southern villages? So you can't do agreement with a regime you already almost friends with, and you don't have a real fighting with. If the Lebanese army was part of the fight, you can say that the Lebanese government should be part of this negotiation. So we have to wait for these coming days to see what the outcome from Islamabad. Maybe it reflects more or a better ceasefire to Lebanon.
Well, we are waiting very cautiously, but we remain optimistic in the resistance capabilities, as you know. I want to thank Ali Rida Sbeity for joining us, a journalist, war correspondent, live in the field. Have a safe trip home. Look forward to seeing you very soon, my brother.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chris. And sorry, I'm in the car, but I was just in the field. And I pray for the safety for everyone in Lebanon, in Yemen, and Palestine, and every oppressed country in the world.
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you. So there you have it. Two journalists live in the field, Lebanese journalists, war correspondents, speaking to us in their words. I think it's so important to get their words out there and for people to understand what's going on in Lebanon. It is really a critically important place where this ongoing war in the Middle East is happening and where we see the machinations of the United States and Israel playing out. And I think that there will be more news and more information coming, and we will speak to more journalists on the ground. We'll have back Ali as well as Hadi as well back on the show, and we will have them back to talk about many of the issues that are happening around Lebanon and around the region. For this episode of Endgame, this is Christopher Halali signing out. Thank you all for joining.